Welcome back to another deep dive episode of the Everyday English Podcast. I'm Sarah, and I am so happy to be here with you today for a session that might just fave your relationships. And I'm Mark. Hello, everyone. It is great to be back in the studio. You know, Sarah, when you say save our relationships, that sounds very dramatic. Are we becoming a therapy podcast today? Well, not exactly, Mark, but we are definitely going to talk about feelings, and more importantly, how to talk about difficult feelings in English without starting a war. You see, we noticed that many of our listeners watched a video recently about how to break up in English. It covered phrases like, we need to talk, or I think we should start seeing other people. Right, I saw that too. It was a very useful lesson if you have decided that the relationship is over. But it made me think, what about the step before that? What about when you are just angry or annoyed, but you don't want to break up? You just want to fix the problem. Exactly. That is the tricky part. Many English learners struggle here because they translate their thoughts directly from their native language. In many cultures, being direct is a sign of honesty. If you are angry, you say, I am angry. If someone is wrong, you say, you are wrong. But in English, especially in the UK, Canada, and the US, direct translation can often sound incredibly rude or aggressive. I have definitely made that mistake. I remember once telling a colleague, you are late, when they arrived at a meeting. I thought I was just stating a fact, but the room went completely silent. Everyone looked uncomfortable. I didn't understand why until later. That is a perfect example. Grammatically, you are late is a correct sentence, subject, verb, adjective. But socially, it is an accusation. It sounds like you are attacking their character. Today, we are going to learn the art of linguistic softening. We will teach you the grammar and vocabulary to turn a fight into a conversation. This is going to be such a valuable skill, not just for your romantic partners, but for your boss, your colleagues, and even for exams like IELTS or TOEFL. So Sarah, where do we start? What is the first mistake people make? The first mistake is what I call the you trap. When we are unhappy, we tend to start our sentences with the word you. You didn't clean the dishes. You are always on your phone. You forgot our anniversary. Mark, how does it feel when I say those sentences to you? Honestly, I feel defensive immediately. It feels like you are pointing a finger at my chest. My instinct isn't to apologize. My instinct is to fight back and say, no, I didn't, or, well, you are always on your phone too. Precisely. The word you, followed by a negative observation, attacks the person. To fix this, we need to shift the focus from the person to the feeling or the situation. We do this using I statements. An I statement focuses on how the action affects the speaker rather than blaming the listener. So instead of saying, you are so messy, which is an attack, how would I change that? You would identify the feeling you have. So if the house is messy, you probably feel overwhelmed or tired. So the sentence becomes, I feel a bit overwhelmed when house is untidy. I see the difference. If you say, I feel overwhelmed, I can't argue with that. I can't say, no, you don't. It's your feeling. It makes me want to help you rather than fight you. Exactly. Let's try another one. Imagine your friend is always canceling plans at the last minute. The direct, aggressive way to say it is, you don't respect my time. That is a heavy accusation. Mark, how can we transform that into an I statement? Okay, let me think. The feeling is probably frustration or disappointment. So I could say, I feel quite disappointed when our plans get canceled last minute because I was really looking forward to seeing you. Perfect. You see how that changes the energy? You aren't calling them a bad friend. You are expressing your own disappointment. It invites them to apologize. Now, before we move on to the grammar of the passive voice, I want to ask our listeners to take a second. Think of one thing that annoys you about a person in your life. Just one thing. Hold that thought. Now try to create an I statement for it. Don't say, you are loud. Say, I find it hard to concentrate when there is a lot of noise. If you are enjoying this actionable advice, please make sure you are subscribed to the Everyday English Podcast channel so you don't miss our future episodes on conversation skills. That is great advice. Now, Sarah, you mentioned the passive voice. I think a lot of learners dread the passive voice. They learn it in school as this boring grammar table. The ball was kicked by the boy. When do we actually use this in real arguments? We use it all the time to de-escalate conflict. This is the second tool in our kit, the accusation shift. The active voice focuses on the doer of the action. You broke the window. The passive voice focuses on the object. The window was broken. By removing the person from the sentence, you remove the blame. That is like magic for office politics. If I say to my boss, "You made a mistake on the schedule," I might get fired. But if I say, "A mistake was made on the schedule," I am safe. Exactly. You are identifying the problem without identifying the culprit. Let's look at the structure quickly. You need the verb to be and the past participle. So "you lost the report" becomes "the report was lost." Let's practice this with a relationship scenario. Let's say your partner didn't pay the electricity bill. You come home, the lights are out, you are angry. The active voice is, "You didn't pay the bill." What is the passive alternative? The passive alternative would be, "It seems the bill wasn't paid." That sounds so much calmer. It sounds like a mystery we need to solve together, rather than a crime you committed. It really does. And notice Mark used a little phrase there, "it seems." That leads us perfectly into our third and biggest section today, softeners and hedges. This is where you go from sounding like a textbook robot to sounding like a fluent, socially intelligent English speaker. I love this topic. Softeners are those little words that native speakers use constantly to pad their sentences, like bubble wrap. We don't realize we are doing it, but if you take them away, we sound like military commanders. Right. Let's look at 3 types of softeners: adverbs of degree, verbs of perception, and introductory phrases. Let's start with adverbs. Words like a little, a bit, slightly, quite. These are essential. If I say, "Your idea is bad," that is harsh. But if I say, "Your idea is a bit impractical," or "Your idea is slightly risky," it softens the blow. It suggests that the problem is small, even if it is actually big. It saves face for the other person. Yes, saving face is key. Another great word here is quite. Now, be careful with quite. In American English, quite usually means very. But in British English, if I say "I am quite upset," it can mean I am a little upset or I am very upset, depending on the intonation. But generally, using quite helps to modulate your tone. "I am quite worried about our spending" sounds better than "your spending is terrible." Okay, what about the verbs? You mentioned verbs of perception. These are verbs like seem, appear, and tend to. This is the most powerful tool for arguing. When you use the verb to be, like "you are wrong," you are stating an objective fact. You are claiming to hold the truth. When you use seem, like "you seem mistaken," you are stating a subjective perception. You are admitting that this is just how it looks to you, and you could be wrong. I use tend to all the time. It is great for criticizing habits without saying the person is always bad. Instead of saying "you interrupt me when I speak," which creates a fight, I might say "you tend to interrupt me when I get excited." Yes, tend to means it is a habit, but not a permanent character flaw. It's much easier to hear. Let's roleplay a little argument to show the contrast. "Mark, I want you to complain about my cooking. Be direct and aggressive first." Okay, here I go. "Sarah, this soup is salty. You added too much salt. You ruined it." Wow, okay. I feel hurt. I worked hard on that soup. Now, I want you to say the exact same thing, but use the passive voice for the salt and use a verb of perception for the taste. Okay, let me try. "Sarah, the soup seems a little salty. It looks like maybe too much salt was added." Do you hear the difference? The soup seems a little salty. It looks like too much salt was added. I am not being attacked. I am much more likely to say, "Oh, really? Let me taste." "Oh, you are right. I'm sorry." It completely changes the dynamic. There is one more category you mentioned, introductory phrases. Things like "I was wondering if," or "Is there any chance?" Yes, these are vital for making requests or asking someone to change their behavior. The imperative mood, verbs like "do this," "stop that," "clean your room," is very aggressive in English between adults. We almost never use it unless we are in a dangerous emergency. Instead, we turn orders into questions or possibilities. So instead of saying "turn down the music, it's too loud," what should I say? You could say, "I was wondering if you could turn the music down a little bit," or "Would you mind turning the music down?" "Would you mind" is a classic, but learners need to be careful with the answer, right? Yes, if someone asks, "Would you mind?" and you want to say, "Yes, I will do it," the answer is actually no. No, I don't mind. If you say yes, it means yes, I mind, I don't want to do it. So no, not at all, I'll turn it down is the polite response. Got it. So we have I statements, the passive voice, softeners like seem and tend to, and polite introductory phrases. But Sarah, sometimes we have a really big problem. We can't just be soft forever. Sometimes we need to have a serious conversation. How do we structure that without it falling apart? That is where the sandwich strategy comes in. Imagine a sandwich. You have a nice piece of bread on top, the meat or cheese in the middle, and another piece of bread on the bottom. In a difficult conversation, the bread is positivity, and the filling is the criticism or the problem. I like this visualization. So you start with something good, you slip in the bad news, and you end with something good. Exactly. Let's say you need to talk to your partner about money. Maybe they are spending too much on clothes. If you just say, "Stop buying clothes, we are broke," you start a fight. Let's build a sandwich. Mark, be the spender. I'm going to talk to you. Okay, I am ready. I just bought 3 new jackets. Okay, step 1, the top slice of bread. Validate and connect. Mark, I know you work so hard and you deserve to treat yourself to nice things. I love that you have such great style. Okay, I feel good. I feel appreciated. I am listening. Step 2, the filling, the criticism, using our softeners. However, I've been looking at our bank account and it seems we are a little over budget this month. I am getting a bit worried about our savings goals. Okay, I feel a little guilty, but you didn't attack me. You said you are worried about the goals, not that I am irresponsible. Step 3, the bottom slice of bread, the solution and reassurance. So I was wondering if we could maybe stick to a tighter budget just for next month. We can figure this out together, and I know we can get back on track. That works perfectly. I would say yes to that. It feels like we are a team against the problem, not enemies fighting each other. That is the core philosophy of arguing in English. You and me against the problem, not you against me. If you keep that mindset and use these grammar tools, you can get through almost any disagreement. I want to add one point about tone of voice here. All of these phrases, it seems, I feel, a little bit, they have to be said with a gentle intonation. If you say, "It seems you are stupid," with a sarcastic tone, the grammar won't save you. You have to sound genuine. Absolutely. Your voice should go down at the end of statements to sound calm. If your voice goes up and gets loud, you lose the benefit of the soft words. Practice saying these phrases in front of a mirror. Look at your face. Do you look angry? Try to relax your eyebrows. Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on something for our academic listeners. We have a lot of subscribers preparing for IELTS and TOEFL. Does this stuff actually help in an exam, or is it just for real life? Oh, it helps immensely. In IELTS Speaking Part 3, specifically, the examiner will ask you about complex social issues. For example, do you think technology makes people lazy? If you answer, yes, it does, that is a band 5 or 6 answer. It is too simple. But if you use these softeners? If you say, well, it seems to me that technology can tend to make people a bit less active, though it depends on how it is used, that is a band 8 or 9 structure. You are showing that you can handle nuance. You are showing that you have the vocabulary to express degrees of certainty. Examiners love words like tend to, arguably, and presumably. So, learning to argue politely isn't just about saving your relationship, it's about boosting your exam score too. That is a win-win situation. It really is. So, let's recap what we covered today. We learned to avoid the you trap and use I statements like I feel hurt instead of you are mean. We learned to use the passive voice to shift blame, like the window was broken instead of you broke the window. We also discussed softeners, using verbs like seem, appear, and tend to, and using adverbs like a little, quite, and slightly. And finally, we built the sandwich strategy. Start positive, insert the softened problem, and end with a positive solution. That is a powerful toolkit. Now we want to see if you can use it. We have a challenge for you today. Yes, the compliment challenge. Well, sort of. We want you to think of a small annoyance you have in your life. Maybe your neighbor plays drums at midnight. Maybe your colleague chews gum loudly. We want you to write a comment below describing this problem, but you must use at least 2 of the softeners we learned today. So don't write, my neighbor is loud. Write, my neighbor tends to be a little loud at night. We will be reading the comments and replying to the most polite and well-structured ones. It is a great way to practice immediately. And if you know someone who is always getting into arguments because they are too direct, maybe share this episode with them. You can tell them, I thought you might find this a little interesting. See what I did there? I saw that. Very soft, very polite. Thank you all for listening to the Everyday English podcast. We are so grateful for your time and your dedication to learning. Keep practicing, keep listening, and remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be a little bit better every day. See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.